Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Friday, August 9th, 2019. The Premier League is upon us starting tonight. Newly promoted Norwich City facing the European champion of Liverpool tonight at Anfield. It is upon us. The off-season is over. The Premier League starts tonight, Duane.
Whee! Yeah, tough start for Norwich. I love the Premier League. It's everything. I love Saturday mornings, eating eggs and watching soccer. It's one of my favorite pleasures in life. Tough start for Norwich, as you say, but they're back after a few years out. Delightful strips they have, so they'll add something. I'm not sure they'll add many wins on the season, but we shall see.
Not sure they're going to stay up for more than a season, but we'll see that. And obviously, we're previewing the Premier League today. It's our preview show for the Premier League once a year. Usually the Friday before it starts, we do dive deep into the Premier League and what we think is going to happen. It's not necessarily a preview show where we're going to tell you 1 to 20 which team's going to finish where, but it's more of a conversation about what we think is going to happen, our kind of like our bold predictions or maybe tangents and trends that we will see happen in the Premier League this year. But before we talk about what we think is going to happen, we have a bunch of questions, as always, we're going to answer, Duane and I. Two big new, I would say, concept making their debut in the Premier League. One just for Canadian, and that one's going to be interesting. And the other one is VAR. We'll get to VAR in a second, and I know Duane's opinion on that, and that's going to be a fun conversation. But before that, DAZN, the Premier League for their season 2019-2020, will be only available on DAZN in Canada. Of course, if you have NBC as your channel, you'll have some games on NBC sometimes, but most of the Premier League games will be available through the streaming over-the-top platform called DAZN. That is available for $20 a month for fans, and if you are in Canada, that's where you have MLS Live as well, so you're a little bit aware of the situation. The Champions League has been on DAZN for 2 Champions League now too, but first of all, your overall thought, Duane, on the Premier League on DAZN in Canada.
I think people misunderstand me when I express concerns about the Premier League being available only over the top in Canada this year. They think I'm, an old man yelling at the cloud about disruptive technology. That's not the case at all. The service is very good. They've figured their streaming issues out that they had when they launched with the NFL. It is a very smooth and clear stream. You can cast it on your TV or watch it on your devices. It's quite nice. You can watch replays of games. That's a nice little feature. I mean, you're going to be able to, obviously you're going to not be able to watch every game at 1 to 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. But if you want to go back after the fact, you can do so, or they have some extended highlights as well for all the games. So if you are a fan that is already engaged with the sport, it is a very, very good product that absolutely any Premier League fan should have. The alternative obviously is to, either just watch one game a week on NBC or do what you do on your laptop. But this is smooth, this is clean, this is
you don't have to risk virus
on there as well, so it's good that way, Kevin.
Yeah, and there is other sports as well on DAZN. I have to say, I keep forgetting that I have DAZN, and then I go on a 4-hour binge watch of weird sports on DAZN sometimes, but that's what it is. And with the Champions League, we did see a dip in Canada of importance, or of water cooler talk, if that thing still exists, or maybe talk about, the water cooler should be sub by talking together next to an electric outlet when our phone is charging. So that talk is, the Champions League, because of it's hard to find in Canada. If you're just, even all the way to the final, people on social media, where can I watch? It's not on TV. What am I going to do? Oh, yeah, DAZN, blah, blah, blah. For the casuals, I know we talk often about the casuals and the fringe soccer fan who's going to come for big events, they're not going to stumble upon the Premier League. But the Premier League is such a product that people do seek. The fans do seek. So I do think it's going to go down a bit better than the Champions League, but we'll see. And I'm still going to watch my Chelsea. They could put Chelsea on like an app from like on CONCACAF Go or on Oz, and I would still watch it. So I guess I'll be watching DAZN a lot this year.
And if it was on CONCACAF Go, I'm not sure the stream would be watchable, but nonetheless. Look, yes, this is exactly my issue, and the other issue I will express has to do with communal watching in a bar or a club or a pub or a cafe, that sort of thing, and that's a big part for a lot of people of the experience. You go early in the morning, you have breakfast, as I said, having eggs, and you watch the game. Now, obviously, if you're at home, it's a very smooth situation, but I can tell you with personal experience, when you have a packed bar and there are other people using the Wi-Fi in that bar, even when they have a 5G top-of-the-line system in place, it does sometimes grind, right? It sometimes lags, and
there's a buffer. There's buffer issues, and that's... Even though, like you say, even though you might have a very high internet capabilities at the bar you're at and the Wi-Fi and all that, it's never as smooth or never as crisp and clear as regular television. And that's a proven media platform, television. Of course, streaming is a lot better than it was. And of course, when you look at DAZN, most of the time when I stream it, I don't have an issue. But we're talking about here where I have probably the best internet you can get in the entire world or so. So, yeah, I don't consider my internet situation being normal because of this show and all that we do. I need a very, very high internet bandwidth and capability. So, no, it is an issue. And oftentimes people, because of their... let's not forget, Duane, you get out of urban centers in Canada, you go a bit more in the rural areas, some internet not even good enough to stream now. So I feel bad for the fan of, Watford who lives in North Bay, Ontario, who's going to have some trouble watching their team this weekend and this season.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, there are parts of this country and in the United States, for that fact, that don't have access to high-speed internet. Not a lot, and they usually are in smaller areas, and those people effectively are being shut out from watching this altogether. So that's unfortunate. Obviously, that's not a huge number in terms of people, but there are still people that you might get. I grew up in a small town. Would I have been able to find the sport? I did find the sport back then. So obviously, people that really, really want it usually can find it, but you're not going to just grab someone in and bring them into the game as easily. So it's I guess, all this said, I do understand that this is the way the industry is moving, and that over-the-top services are obviously going to be, cable TV is slowly going to
the transition
evolve. Although I don't think it's ever going to completely disappear. No. I suspect that we will have some form of over-the-top cable, basically.
You know what?
Streaming cable packages.
10 years ago, I made a prediction, and it's getting there. You know what my prediction was? That all TV channels will become just YouTube channels eventually. Literally, this was going to happen. Now TSN broadcast stuff on YouTube sometimes. So maybe that's what it's going to become. You just need an internet provider, and then you'll get YouTube and you have all the channels. But this is not a media future show, but it is interesting, and I think it will be fascinating to see the consequences of having DAZN, the positive ones and the negative ones, and it'll be a topic, it'll be a story in the Premier League this year, at least in Canada. Another big topic of debate that is going to make its debut in the Premier League this year is video-assisted refereeing. The video replay, better known as VAR, will make its debut in England this year.
Before I do that, one last pro tip on DAZN, Kevin. If you're watching on your phone, turn your push alerts off. Otherwise, you're going to have goals spoiled. Anyway,
that's true.
Happened to me many times. It's like, kind of takes away from it. But anyway.
Can you imagine in 2013 if you were watching the last game of Man City on your phone with the push notifications on the zone, yeah, you would have had that second goal spoiled. Can you imagine your reaction at that point?
Well, my reaction just would have been a little bit earlier.
Throwing the phone. The phone is gone.
I sometimes forget. And it also, like, even when there isn't a goal, it's still spoiled in a way because you're not seeing the push load when you see it build up at the push back. Anyway, back to VAR. Look, we've talked a lot about VAR on this show. Everyone, I think, understands my position. My position is in the minority in North America anyway, in terms of I don't believe it's a benefit to any sport, video replay. I don't aspire to see perfection in refereeing, and I think that what happens when you have VAR, when you have a video refereeing, you're slowing it down to, a thousandth of a second. You end up having pedantic calls made that aren't really in what I would call the spirit of the game, and it just, I don't know. I don't think the game was ever meant to be viewed or officiated in this way, and I get that, to someone who's a purist about rules, they might, say, well, any violation is a violation. I don't know. I'm an old man when it comes to this. I want games to be managed, not, called to the absolute, right? I think it slows the game down and makes the game worse. That's my opinion on VAR. But what's going to be interesting, Kevin, before I let you jump in this year, is that the English are a particular culture with this.
With technology?
I don't think it's the majority of people like it there, and it's going to be a big talking point all year. We are going to be sick and tired of talking about and hearing about VAR. Because
maybe. Sorry. I was just going to say, Duane, I agree with you, and we've seen VAR, how it can become almost a joke, like a trope, a very bad concept, like in the Women's World Cup this summer. But maybe it's my naive, young mentality here that thinks that the Englishmen are going to do VAR right because of the knowledge of the sport, the culture, the non-written rules, the knowledge of those, and the concept of, okay, how about we do VAR right here for once? Maybe they're going to do it right by not over-relying on VAR and literally just going to VAR when it's clear and an obvious error. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe it's just me. But maybe the Premier League will do VAR right.
That is the biggest issue with VAR overall, in my opinion, is this slippery slope, the creeping towards more and more calls being reviewed. I said that when it first was introduced anywhere in the sport, this is what's going to happen. This clear and obvious stuff is not going to not be clear and obvious when they reverse calls. That's my biggest issue with it. Like, hand to God in 1986, sure, that if you have video replay, can be reversed. Mm-hmm. It maybe should have been reversed. It is kind of part of the narrative of the sport now. But nonetheless, that's what I was going to say.
I was going to say, are we gonna kill a little aspect of the sport that is the human aspect, where there is mistakes sometimes, and it creates moments that do become famous or infamous and stay in the mentality, into the public consciousness, the zeitgeist of the sport. That's literally what the hand of God is. It's in the zeitgeist of the sport. And Maradona has been, of course, he was an amazing player. Imagine if he would have taken care of himself, but that's not the point. I'm just saying that, it's part of, his legend status is 10 times fold because of the hand of God. And we might not have that created again in Premier League. But again, it's a different time. It's almost a different sport now. And because of the technology and all that. But, we had some, I would say, questioning when goal line technology made its debut, and they did that right. So I'm willing to be naive and think that VAR might be at least the best implementation of VAR we've seen so far might be this year.
Yeah, and to be clear, I view goal line technology differently because that's the most important aspect of the game. And
there's no interpretation. There's literally no interpretation of the rule. It's one of the only rules where there's no interpretation.
Yeah, and it's like tennis, right? Like, it's instant and it
It's
very
either
much.
in-
City doesn't win the Premier League last year if there isn't goal line technology, and the Liverpool fan may think that they want it out of the game now when they say that, but the goal line clearance, it was what, 2 millimeters before it all went over, right?
That's wild, but you're right that there's no argument there. It's in or it's out. It's behind the line or it's on the line. There's no judgment. There's no interpretation of the rule. But if some referees could interpret the rules correctly, I kind of trust a bit more the Premier League referees than I did pro referees in Major League Soccer in 2017, the summer of 2017, when they first debuted VAR. And I was there in Chicago for Howard Webb's presentation of VAR. And I really dive like a deep dive into the subject, asked our question. I was in the booth. I've seen what a VAR booth is, and I've seen it in action. So I do understand the concept, and I have been disappointed by the implementation of it, especially in Major League Soccer. What I was told and what I've seen with experience over the last 2 years are two different things, but I'm still hopeful. Maybe that's the hopeful romantic in me that wants VAR to work in the most romantic soccer league in the world, the Premier League.
Yeah, to be clear, I think anyone who's watched multiple leagues within it would, probably agree with the idea that VAR in MLS might be the worst league that does it in terms of how they interpret it, in my opinion anyway.
Bundesliga hasn't been that bad, you're right. The Bundesliga has been one of the 3 leagues that have had it since 2017. Major League Soccer is one that has not necessarily go down. I don't know what the Korean and Japan league look like, but if we compare Bundesliga to MLS, you're right. Bundesliga has a better approach to it, I would say, and a threshold of what is a clear and obvious error a bit higher, so you don't see the use of VAR as often. So that's why maybe I'm hopeful about England, because the Germans did it right, so maybe the Englishmen will too.
That's hope. I mean, my final thought on it. One good thing that may come from VAR is that we may loosen the interpretation of offside, because I simply don't believe that if your pinky is a millimeter ahead of the defender that you have an advantage. I think that the rule needs to be adjusted so that if any part of your body is onside, the advantage should go to the attacker. I believe that strongly. Like we see so many great plays that are negated because it's negligibly offside in a technical way, and I don't know.
No, you're right. I agree with you, Duane. And here, maybe we'll solve the world. We'll solve one of the problems of the world right now. There is such a thing as a margin of error in anything you do, right? So if you want to make sure there's not too much advantage for the player, how about you do create a margin of error for an offside that is the size of the ball. If you're more than a ball away from your defender further up, that's offside. Like literally, it would be what? 6 inches? But that's enough to eliminate the 1 millimeter. Oh, you're 1 millimeter past the defender. That's offside. It'll just like common sense. Is there an advantage? The ball size is a metric that is used on the pitch. It's the size of the ball. It's the object. It's the widget, the gimmick that everyone's trying to get. So I guess that would make sense to me. Make a 6-inch zone of error for an offside, but that's not the point today.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Look, it's here to stay, obviously, so I should probably get used to it, but I'm still not going to like it ever. I don't like it in any sport, like I said.
Sure.
Like, I hate it in other sports. I wish, maybe a challenge system where you can challenge one call a game or something. I could maybe handle something like that, but I don't know.
But then it becomes even more the amount of time we see the flag of the coach. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But it's we don't want to alter the game too much. One of the things we love about soccer is that it's non-stop. So don't make it stop, please. Don't add way too many opportunity for the game to stop. Now we'll stop talking and we'll start previewing, Duane and I, the 2019-2020 season in the Premier League. We have 8 questions, 6 for the Premier League, 2 for Europe that we'll go through. And the first question, Duane, and I'll let you start. What is going to be the story of the year in the Premier League, according to Duane Rollins?
We might have just touched on one of them, and that's VAR, but I'm not going to go there. I thought about this one quite a lot, and I think there are a lot of great potential storylines in this season. You could talk about, City trying to repeat its treble and win a Premier League for a third straight season. You could talk about, the passion of Liverpool finally getting their title. You could look at the struggles of a team like United. They might have their lowest ever Premier League finish this year, according to a lot of people. You could look at a lot of things like that, but to me, it comes down to like that classic battle at the top, and I'm going to even narrow it further. I think the story of the year is going to be Klopp v. Pep. Those two men are reflections of the club that they manage. They are the two biggest personalities, I think, in the league right now. They have it's not a angry rivalry, but they're a little snippy. We saw that in the lead up to the Community Shield with Pep saying, come on, Liverpool, you're not the little club trying hard, and Liverpool snapping back, we just can't buy every player that we want. There's a bit of a rivalry emerging there, and those games between Liverpool and City are always excellent. And as I said, the two men have very big personalities in a different way. And I think that their rivalry is going to continue to be a great narrative, a great story in the Premier League this year.
I cannot argue with that, of course. So Pep versus Klopp, Pep versus Jurgen is Duane's story of the year in the Premier League. Mine is a bit similar, and of course I've taken the easy route on this one. The Manchester City 3-peat. Pulling a Michael Jordan in the Premier League is not easy. Winning 3. While I'm saying this, we have the Etihad, of course, in the background. That's quite a timing. But yeah, Manchester City winning the Premier League for a third straight time. And I do feel that this time around, they'll know just like a week before. So it won't be a affair like this year where all the way up to the last game we figured it was a contested affair. I do think it's going to be close. Liverpool, again, will be the closest title contender and challenger for City, but City's depth and City's overall quality will propel the Citizen to a third title in 3 years, and probably a three-peat, and who knows, maybe even the Champions League.
Yeah, we'll get to that later in my prediction. Certainly City, look, I understand why some people find them almost dull at this point, because they are very robotic almost in how they just dismantle teams. And that's what, to me, sets them apart more than anything else, is they don't make mistakes against the worst teams. They just, even when they're not completely on their game or they're playing 3 games in 10 days or something like that, they just find a way to stay in their system, to stay composed, and to grind out results when they're not at their best. And the fact that Liverpool could not nip them last year does not bode well for anyone doing it this year. Their biggest enemy, and we'll get to the predictions later on in the show, obviously, in terms of ordering, their biggest enemy will probably, the only enemy I can see to them really is themselves. Are they complacent? Are they bored? Well, they put too much emphasis on the Champions League, which I do believe is obviously going to be their biggest focus this year.
Yeah, I agree. But for me, my story of the year, it's kind of the easy one, but it's when I talk about story of the year, when I think about story of the year, Duane, I have the story that is the most important. And oftentimes in a league like the Premier League, the title story is important because it's 38 games. You battle for that title. There's nothing quite like it outside of a Premiership or a First Division title with this format around the world. And let's move to question number 2. The player to watch in the Premier League in 2019-2020. I'll start for this one, Duane. I'm wearing my Chelsea jersey. It would be really easy to say, oh yeah, Pulisic. Do I think Pulisic will be the player to watch in the Premier League in 2019-2020? Maybe not. Maybe again, I'll go easy with, oh yeah, player to watch, it's going to be Aguero. Of course, we know Aguero's one of the best players in the league. Could be Bernardo Silva, too, who's going to have a bit more playing time, I think, this year. But for me, my player to watch is Harry, you're a wizard, Kane, who's lost some weight in the offseason. He comes in motivated after missing part of the 18-19 season with injury. I think Harry Kane is going to have quite a season, and he's my player to watch in the Premier League.
Yeah, certainly, an excellent player for sure, and at the peak of his powers right now. And Spurs is a very interesting team. And, again, we'll get to the actual ordering of predictions in a bit, but an interesting team, as I said, went to the Champions League final last year. They've proven that they can compete with anyone, and Harry Kane is, right there as one of the best players in the world, and obviously a great player to watch this year, Kevin. I actually am. I thought about getting cute with this question. I really did, but I am not going to get cute. I'm going to actually pick Sergio Aguero. And the reason I'm going to pick Sergio Aguero is not only because he has been so consistently successful throughout his career. He is one of the best goal scorers in that league's history. It's because he's never been player of the year. And I think this might be the year that people recognize that maybe they've been overlooked. They're taking him for granted, really, is what it comes down to. So I'm going to pick Aguero because I think this is finally the year that he will be recognized as the player of the year, provided he stays healthy, provided he does the same things he would. There's no reason to believe that he won't score his goals. He has in the past had some injury problems, but it's been a couple of years where he's been, fairly healthy the last couple of years. And he has been underappreciated, as good as he is, and I think most people understand he's very, very good. I do believe that on an overall level, he has been a little bit underappreciated throughout his time in the Premier League by non-City fans, at least.
Yeah, it's true, and he's probably going to be again in the Golden Boot conversation without too much of I would put money on that. That's a bet that's probably going to come true. So, no, Sergio Aguero is always a great choice as a player to watch. Moving to the team outside the Big Six to pay attention to. It all depends what you consider a Big Six team or not. I'll let you start, Duane. Which team outside of your typical Big Six do you want to pay more attention to?
Yeah, quickly, if someone is new, quickly I'll explain the Big Six are City, Liverpool, City, Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, Arsenal, and United would be what most people would consider the Big Six. If you didn't know that, I don't want to assume anyone would. But if you want to look outside of it, and I kind of slipped up and gave you my answer already, I really like the moves Everton has done this year. I like their build. Yeah. I think that they're ready to compete and to push for Europe, which usually is probably going to be 7 spots. There's not automatic, but they're probably usually 7 spots go to Europe. So I think that they will push for that and may even be able to challenge those bottom teams in the 6. I think that like I said, I believe they're going to have a dynamic attack this year. They're well coached, I believe, and I just like the stuff that they've done, the changes they've made. So they haven't had the greatest preseason. They've struggled to score for some reason, but I think they're going to figure it out. And I like Everton. I think that it's going to be a lot of good football played in Liverpool this year.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to pick Everton too. Well, I had two teams, Everton. But because you chose Everton, I'm going to go a bit outside the Big Six. And I'm going to choose Watford. Watford, for me, with Troy Deeney and with the attitude, the blue-collar mindset, the working hard, play physical, might get a lot of yellow and red cards probably, but, for me, Watford is competing, is trying to compete. Doesn't matter if they're playing against Crystal Palace or they're playing against Chelsea or Man City, they go after it. They have a certain amount of grinta that I kind of like, and I kind of hope Watford continues on their upward trajectory and have another top 10 finish, who's maybe 8th and 7th, depending. It's not out of the question. So for me, Watford is my team outside of the top 6 to keep an eye on.
Yeah, there really has emerged, I think, a clear second tier in the Premier League, and this is kind of the teams we're talking about. Wolves would be a lot of people's choice for this question, I believe, and
absolutely.
They are a sexy pick for breaking into the top 6, but certainly Watford is a strong contender there. And then the rest of the bottom after that, it gets crazy tight, and we'll talk about that when we talk about our relegation teams.
Which is the next question on the list. Who gets relegated, Duane? And I'll let you start. Which 3 teams in the 2019-2020 season will get relegated?
If you look at the trends over time, typically 2 of the 3 teams that get promoted go back down. Although there have been exceptions, obviously. All 3 have stayed up in the past. But that's kind of a safe bet in a lot of ways because it is so hard to bridge that gap nowadays. And And really, it is a big step up for these clubs to go from the Championship to the Premier League. And I think that although, as I said, there is a lot of parity after about 10-11 in the Premier League this year, I think you can look at any of those teams that are in sort of the bottom half of the 10, or the bottom half of the league, so to speak, at least predicted there, are probably going to not feel safe until May. Even the ones that do stay up. So yeah, but I do think that it's a relatively safe bet to say that 2 of the 3 promoted teams will go back down. And I'm going to say that Villa is the team that stays up from the promoted teams.
You literally took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, let's just mention the 3 teams that have been promoted: Norwich City, Sheffield United, and Aston Villa. If we look at the makeup of those 3 clubs and the history of those 3 clubs, Aston Villa is a notch above financially and, of course, historically speaking. So, for me, Aston Villa has a very high probability of maybe staying up, which means Norwich, Sheffield would be the 2 going down that have come up, which leaves one question. Who's the 3rd team going down, Duane?
Yeah, I struggle with this one. There's a lot of good choices, which are bad choices, really, because we're talking about relegation.
Exactly.
What I landed on was Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace is just so razor thin that they really are over-reliant
on Roy.
One player.
On the coach. They're over-relying on the oldest coach in the Premier League.
Yeah, if there's any struggle there at all, they could be in trouble, which is a shame. Crystal Palace is a fun team to watch. They have great home support there. It's one of the sort of the best atmospheres in the Premier League, but they're certainly going to be in that battle royale. And as I said, because I think their margins are thinner than some of the other teams around them, that's why I selected them as the team to go down. It wasn't in the lineup, Kevin, but real quickly, I'm going to tell you what teams are coming up.
Oh, it's going to be the year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Leeds looks very, very good.
Yeah.
Having watched them play earlier this week, I think that they'll get the job done, and I think that they'll also win. Be a team that comes up and is able to stay up. And look, they've been in the doghouse, the purgatory for long. They've paid
20
their
years?
penance.
How long has it been? 15? How long has it been since Leeds made it to the Premier League?
Oh wow.
Well, you talk. I'll look.
Yeah, I think it's more than a decade anyway. They certainly had some mismanagement, which led to the problems that they had. But they play a fun brand of soccer right now, and even though there's a lot of people that still don't like them because of their old teams back in the day, I think that we've been missing something with them having been down. In terms of the other teams that goes up, the other 2 teams that goes up, who knows? The championship is so crazy at times. But
Derby County with their new player Wayne Rooney. New player manager, maybe that will be one. They were close last year. Leeds United has been relegated from the Premier League in the 2003-2004 season, so they haven't been in the big one for 15 years. So we were very close to it, and those are good choices. Leeds, I want Forest. So Leeds, Forest, and Derby County are my 3 predictions to come up next year. But that's like 2 weeks into the championship, so we'll see.
All right, I'll pick. I agree with you in Derby. I'll go for the 3rd. Bristol City. There you go.
Yeah, that'll make our friend Simon Fudge in England really happy to see Bristol back in the Premier League. But let's move on to the next question on the list. And give me a second, my list closed. Here we go. Name your top 6 in order. Duane, I'll start with my top 6. It's a bit controversial, but we'll start. Number 6 in my prediction for the 2019-2020 season, Manchester United, followed by in 5th position, Chelsea, then Arsenal at their preferred spot in 4th in the Premier League, Spurs in 3rd, Liverpool in 2nd, and for the 3rd straight year, Manchester City winning the Premier League.
Yeah, 6th, I'm going to go with Everton. And you'll never guess who I've put out of the top 6.
Manchester United, your second favorite team out of Manchester.
I don't know, maybe not. Is there any men's league teams that I could pick? Anyway, like co-ed, like rec teams probably.
That's probably okay. Fine.
Yeah. United's going to struggle this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They got a bit of a bump last year with the coaching change. When you're being managed by Satan and you lose him, you tend to relax a bit and do better. I don't think they're going to fall much below 7.
Did you just call Jose Mourinho Satan?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
You just called the devil. Well, they are the Red Devils after all.
True, fair enough. I think United's going to finish 7th. That's my sort of, I guess, off the pad. Well, I was talking to a United fan this morning on Twitter, and they don't necessarily disagree with me. So there you go. Anyway, to finish,
that says a lot when they're like, "Yeah, we might be 7th."
To continue up, it's between Chelsea and Arsenal for the next spot. I'm going to flip your picks. I think that it will be Arsenal in 5th and Chelsea in 4th.
All right.
But flip a coin, really.
Yeah.
I think Chelsea's inability to add in the midseason, if they run into any problems, might be a problem. But certainly, there you go. And I think I'm also going to be sick of listening about the Christian Pulisic's exploits. By some of the podcasts I listen to.
Here's the thing, Duane. Chelsea has their American player in Pulisic. But did you know they have maybe a Canadian as a backup defender for Chelsea? Tomori. Kariya Tomori, who might be a Canadian player. He still has to choose between Canada and England. But he's a Chelsea player. And that makes me excited too. But that's not our prediction.
Yeah. For those who don't know, he has Canadian roots. He did represent Canada at youth level and then switched to England at youth level, but he hasn't declared for the senior team. And a lot of Canadians are very hopeful because of our problems in the back. But moving on from there, so we're at 3rd now. Well, it's hard to not. I think most people in the world are going the top 3 in this. Well, they'll flip with 1 and 2, but I think everyone pretty much is picking Spurs 3rd.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the most consensus pick in a long time. Okay, so at the top, obviously I have a bias here. Obviously, City is. I always am reluctant to say that I think they're going to win because I don't want people to assume I'm just saying it because. But I think in this particular year, it's going to be difficult to not pick them, and I'll tell you why. It's more that I don't think Liverpool can replicate what they did last year. They had a near perfect season, including some lucky breaks when you think back on it. There was at least 3 crazy keeper errors late in the game that they benefited from against Everton. I remember the Everton one in particular, but the handed points. And for them to get back up to the same level just doesn't seem realistic to me. I still think they're very good, obviously. I picked them famously 6th last year. I'm not going to make that mistake again. But for them to get, mid-90s, it just doesn't seem like they're going to get the same level of luck. Everything sort of regresses to the mean, so to speak. I think they're more of an 85-point team, and I think they're clearly going to be 2nd. But I think this is a season when you look, as I said earlier in the show, City are like robots. They don't make mistakes. They grind out wins. They have great depth at every position. They have had one of the best windows again. When you're the richest team, you tend to have good windows. So as long as those players integrate,
they don't even need to call up anyone anymore. People call them. I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, it's a good idea. We could look into that. They don't need to it's not a vicious cycle. It's a happy cycle if you are a Manchester City fan, but it's a wheel that keeps on turning. The better you are, the easier it is to get better because people want to come. So it's like the Golden State Warriors in the NBA. It's like it's easy to join a winning team is a lot easier than to decide to just join Leeds.
Yeah, the only question is whether you want to battle for time. The biggest question this offseason for City has been whether Sané is going to stay, and then the injury he suffered in the Community Shield probably is going to keep him there at least for the first half of the season. But yeah, there's just not a lot of.
Well, we'll see if he's actually ready to be back in the offseason, right? In 6 months' time, he tore his ACL, Leroy Sané, my last week, so.
Yeah, he hurt his knee in some way anyway. Yeah, look, there's not a lot of reason not to pick them unless you truly, sentimentally, I think a lot of people are going to pick Liverpool, but I do actually think that's a sentimental pick. So that's it. Quickly, Kevin, well, I'm just going to look. I did a poll this morning, so I'm going to look to see what the picks of our listeners were. You can sort of freelance here for a second while I find it.
So Duane usually makes a poll on his social media and polls his audience about who's going to win the Premier League, about their favorite teams, a couple of different questions usually. So Duane, this time around, asked our listeners, what was the question you asked him?
Just who was going to win, pure and simple. And I made 4 choices. There was, I added Spurs.
City, Spurs, Liverpool, and the field?
Chelsea. No, I didn't put the field one in there. I just put, I picked who I picked for the top 4. What the hell is this thing? Sorry for this. I'm usually can find it pretty quick, but I had a lot of mentions this morning. So
yeah, Duane's Twitter is pretty busy. Like it's.
All right,
I wish I had a busy Twitter like that, which I can if you follow me at Kev Laramee or follow Duane on 24th Minute.
All right, there's been 163 votes so far. I put it up about an hour ago. Right now, City is the consensus at 49% of the listeners. 34% are picking Liverpool. 13% are picking Spurs, and just 4% decided Chelsea was going to somehow win the title. So there you go.
It's 4% more than I thought. It's 4% more for Chelsea than I thought. Yeah, Chelsea's not winning the league this year. Frank Lampard, beginning of the match. Yeah, I didn't really talk a lot about Chelsea. That's because I put them 5th. I wish they're going to be 4. We'll see. I'm not that hopeful. It's not about this year. It's about building for next year where they'll be able to spend money again. But for Chelsea this year, it's about maintaining the course, learning, progressing, and thinking of 2020, 2021 as a year to challenge.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, as I said, Spurs is probably going to be the consensus 3 for everyone. They're the only team I could see in some crazy scenario.
Second or first, yeah.
Yeah, bypassing one of those teams. But yeah, look, it's turned into a very La Liga kind of race for sure. There is a huge top 2 and the rest in many, many ways. And, it's very much La Liga because you have, Barcelona, Real Madrid, or City and Liverpool, and then you have your Atleti, which is Spurs. They don't play the same way, but that's kind of where they're stacking up this year. So I think it's going to be a disappointing title race, to be honest, because as I said, and I agree with you, that I think City is going to have this one dusted with about 3 or 4 games to go this year.
Yep, I agree. Now let's finish the show by looking past England and looking to Europe as a whole. The top 5 leagues, when we talk about the top 5 leagues, we talk about outside of England, we talk about, of course, France, we talk about Bundesliga, we talk about Italy, and we talk about Spain. Those are the big 5 leagues. And Duane, is there going to be a surprise winner in any of those leagues? So, are we going to have freaking Juventus again? Is it going to be Barca again winning? And is PSG ever not going to win League One?
Is there going to be a surprise winner? To answer that question, you have to ask yourself first whether you would consider Dortmund to be a surprise winner.
Anyone,
most likely.
Anyone but Munich, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, look, Dortmund looks the better team right now, based on preseason, based on the Super Cup win. But it's hard not to think that Bayern's going to figure things out. They do have, are having a bit of a turn. It's a change in the new generation there. Obviously, Ribéry and Robin left. Robin retired outright. Ribéry's still floating around looking for some paycheck somewhere. So he'll emerge somewhere eventually. But there has a changing the guard in that team. They're still really, really good. And they still are absolutely going to win, walk most weeks in the Bundesliga. So, it will be a 2-horse race as always. And right now, yeah, I will say Dortmund is the slight favorite for this year only. But, Bayern will just buy their players or something after all. But Dortmund has instituted policy that they're no longer going to sell players to them anymore, which is good. But, yeah, that's my one guess. Look, Italy is another one that maybe I could see Juve slipping up a bit and that race getting closer, but I don't think they're ready to crown a new champion there. I think you're going to need the Milan clubs to really step up their, get back to where they were a decade or so ago, both of them, for there to be a true title race in Italy again, but Juve is always going to be the old lady, right? They're going to always be the team to beat there.
France going to be there. PSG. PSG's going to win with 35 points advantage or something. Even without Neymar. Or Neymar, will he be there? Do we care? Not really. That's what Neymar does. That's what Neymar does to me. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and I think Barca's the clear favorite in La Liga this year.
Atleti second, Madrid somewhere in third or fourth, depending if Madrid, if what's his face, Hazard can pull it off.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to pick Atleti over Real Madrid this year. That's going to be a big, based on Real Madrid's had some shocking results in the preseason, right? So it's sort of hard to pick them, but they're still Real Madrid. And once they gel, they'll probably be fine.
Gareth Bale, Eden Hazard.
Well, Bale plays, but
yeah, not too bad. Well, no, it's going to be interesting. So let's finish the show with what's going to be your biggest story in European football in the 2019-2020 season.
If Alphonso Davies is the World Player of the Year.
No. A boy can dream.
No, I joke. But for me, that will be my personal biggest story, is watching his progression and players like Jonathan David and the Canadians that are emerging in some of those leagues. But to answer the question as it's intended, I'm going to go back to Real Madrid. I think their struggles and Zidane sort of getting bored, I think, in some ways, that's going to be a massive story because of the size and popularity of that club. If they struggle to be close to, I don't think they're going to be close to Barca at all, and if they're behind Atleti, their crosstown rivals, then it's going to become a massive issue. I could see Real Madrid even slipping down and sort of being in that 3-4 battle a little bit more. Some of those teams that can get a scalp off them this year, and they're going to be up to play them because they might see them as a bit of a wounded dog, and that could be a problem for them early on. So I think that Real Madrid is going to be a massive story throughout the first part of the season in a bad way, and we'll see sort of how Zidane reacts to that struggle, because we've never, let's be honest, he's never really had to manage. So we'll see how he handles that.
For me, the story that I want to keep an eye on this year, it is going to be in France. There's some challenge mounting, I think, for PSG. I was joking earlier saying PSG could win by 35 points, but that is contingent with the return of Neymar or not to PSG. And I think that I know there's a sentiment in France that PSG are robbing people of football. They're robbing the country of interest into the Premier League, into the Ligue 1, because they're so good. And I kind of feel like Olympique Marseille might be a story this year. I would love to see Olympique Marseille do well this year. Have a beautiful stadium, and I think they are gathering momentum. I mean, I think they have a shot at getting PSG off their pedestal. And that would be a story. That might be the story of the year if they can pull it off. So I'm cheering for Olympique de Marseille this year in Ligue 1. That's my story of the year in Europe.
It would be great if PSG were challenged. That is a fun league to watch, but it hasn't been that compelling. I mean, Monaco did it 3 years ago now, and then we saw what happened, right?
But they did it. They sold everyone to make money, and then they're mid-table again.
Yeah, well, struggling even below that, but it's
true.
Yeah. Look, I don't. The French league again, it's not. It's the least watched of the big leagues in this part of the world anyway. It is worth your time, but it is not much of a challenge in terms of the top. But yeah, there's a lot of great history in teams and clubs that were once very dominant there that no longer are anywhere close to PSG. So it would be nice if we could have a title race back there and get more attention on that league for sure.
And if you want to watch European football, it might be one of the only ones you can watch on your regular television too. As we talked about earlier in the show, Premier League is on DAZN. Other properties like Bundesliga are usually mostly online. It's not like Sportsnet's going to put them on their TV channel. They fired all their soccer coverage anyway. So who's going to do the games exactly? So TF1, the Télé France 1, one of the only French channel available here in, or TV1, of whatever it is, TV7. It doesn't matter, but they do present some games of Ligue 1, and you'll be able to get those on your basic TV cable channel package. So you'll get some European football on your television for free if you want to watch Liga. But on that note, Duane and I will say goodbye for today. We're back Monday. We'll review the weekend in Major League Soccer and also in the Canadian Premier League and also now in the Premier League. This is the time of year, Duane, where our weekend review becomes a show on its own.
It does indeed, and I look forward to 3 o'clock this afternoon and the start of the Premier League.
Yep, and on that note, you can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute, myself at Kevin Laramee, and our show here at Soccer Today SPN. If you like what we do, make sure you follow us on Twitter. This is where we broadcast our show live Monday to Friday around 11 a.m. on our at Soccer Today SPN feed, and all the shows are available in podcast form at sportspodcastingnetwork.com or anywhere you get your podcasts, so in your favorite podcatcher. You like what we do? You like what Duane and I do? Make sure you go to our Patreon page to support us financially and to get access to exclusive Canadian soccer shows like the Two Solitude Soccer Podcast, which earlier this week we interviewed the Canadian Premier League Commissioner David Clenachan for almost half an hour. Exclusive interview with a lot of great content. $2 a month will give you access to the Two Solitude Soccer Podcast, and in the future there's more shows, more tiers, and more opportunity for exclusive content for you to get at patreon.com/sportspodcastnetwork. But as always, until Monday, for Duane Rollins, I'm Kevin Laramee, and we wish you a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.